There's this quiet revolution happening right now in cybersecurity. It's all about who gets the keys to the kingdom. We're moving away from these static, old-school rule books and into a world where your security policy is actually alive, it's breathing, and it's written in code. So let's break down what that really means for all of us.
So let's just start with the one question that really frames this whole conversation. Is your security policy a dusty rulebook sitting on a shelf somewhere, or is it living, breathing code that can adapt in real time? Seriously, understanding this one difference is the absolute key to modern identity governance.
To really appreciate where we're going, we've got to understand where we've been. So first, let's take a look at the old way of managing access, an approach that, for a lot of companies, is really starting to crack under the pressure of today's fast-paced, super-connected world. For decades, the gold standard has been something called role-based access control, or RBAC for short. And the logic is pretty simple, right? It's intuitive. What you are, your job title, your department, that determines what you can do. So, if you're an accountant, you get access to the finance system. You're a developer, you get access to the code. Makes sense, right? Well, it's simple in theory, but in the real world, this leads to something we call role explosion. You just end up with hundreds, sometimes thousands of slightly different roles. You've got accountant for the US, accountant for Europe, senior accountant for accounts payable. It just becomes totally unmanageable. And here's the real kicker. RBAC has zero context. It doesn't care if you're logging in at 3 a.m. from a weird device you've never used before. If your role says you get in, you're in. And this old way of doing things leads to that thing we all dread, the quarterly access review. You know what I'm talking about, that giant spreadsheet that lands in your inbox, and you're supposed to approve or deny access for tons of people. It's so painful that most managers just click Approve All. But the modern approach, as you can see here, it just flips this on its head. Instead of these big, painful quarterly campaigns, it's continuous. Instead of being manual and slow, it's automated and triggered by events. It's just a much smarter, risk-based way to do things. Okay, so if the old way is broken, what's the fix? Well, the new approach is built on one critical ingredient that whole old model was completely missing: context. And this brings us to attribute-based access control, or ABAC. Now, this is a huge leap forward, because it doesn't just look at your job title. It looks at a whole bunch of different attributes. Who you are, yeah, but also what you're trying to do, and the context around it, like where are you located, what time is it, what's the security health of the device you're on, all of it.
Now, what's really telling here is the side-by-side comparison. Look, RBAC is simple, but it's super inflexible. It works okay for really stable organizations where jobs don't change that often. But ABAC, yeah, it's a little more complex to set up, but what you get is this incredibly fine-grained, dynamic control. It's just built for the world we actually live in now, a world of cloud apps, remote work, and constantly shifting environments.
So, how do you actually apply all those attributes in the real world? Well, that's where policy-based access control, or PBAC, comes into play. You can think of it as the friendly, business-focused version of ABAC. Instead of a bunch of abstract rules, you create these clear, human-readable policies, just like the one you see here. It just so elegantly combines the user's role, the data's sensitivity, the time, and the location into one simple but really powerful statement. All right, so we have these powerful context-aware policies. That's great. But how do we actually enforce them across thousands of systems and maybe millions of requests today? Let's get into the engine that makes all this possible at scale. This right here is the million-dollar question. I mean, humans can't sit there and check every single access request against these complex policies. It's just impossible. You need a system that can make these decisions instantly, reliably, and automatically. You need to turn your policy into something a machine can actually understand and enforce. And the answer is policy as code. This is such a game changer. It means taking those human-readable policies we just talked about and translating them into declarative code. And right now, the standard for this is a fantastic open-source tool called Open Policy Agent, or OPA, which uses a language called Rego. Now, don't get hung up on the syntax here. The specific code isn't the point. What's important is the logic. This is a classic segregation of duties rule, written as code. All it's saying is, hey, if a user has permission to create a payment, they should be denied permission to also approve a payment. It's a fundamental business rule, now translated into code that can be enforced automatically 24/7 to prevent fraud. So, putting this modern approach into practice follows a really clear strategy. First, the business side defines what functions conflict with each other. Then, you map those business ideas to specific technical permissions in your systems.
Step 3, you use that policy as code engine to monitor for any violations in real time. And then finally, and this is the most powerful part, you use it to actually prevent these toxic combinations of permissions from ever being assigned in the first place.
Okay, so policy as code is the engine. But, every engine needs a solid chassis to sit on. Before you can even dream of this automated future, you have to get the foundation right. And that foundation is all about one thing: data.
Let me be crystal clear about this. None of the cool automation we've been talking about is possible if you don't even know what you're trying to govern. You absolutely must have a single, accurate inventory of every single permission across every single application. This is the bedrock of modern governance. We call it the entitlement catalog.
And a proper catalog isn't just some big list of permissions. It's a rich, living database. It needs to know all your applications, all the specific entitlements inside them, how those are grouped into roles, and this is key: who owns them, both from a business and a technical perspective. And finally, you have to know how sensitive the data they protect actually is. Without all this, you're just flying blind.
Okay, so we've covered the old way, the new way, the engine that drives it, and the foundation it's built on. So let's wrap this up by looking just over the horizon at what's coming next, because this is where things get really, really exciting.
The future is something called self-healing governance. Just think about that phrase for a second. We're not just talking about detecting problems anymore. We're talking about a system that can identify a policy violation and then automatically fix it without any human needing to get involved.
And this is a perfect practical example. An employee leads the company, but their access rights are still active. This is a super common security risk. A self-healing system would follow a playbook you've already approved. On day 1, the account's inactive. By day 30, it notifies the manager. Day 60, it escalates. And then, if after 90 days nobody's responded, the system just takes action itself. It automatically revokes that orphaned access. The risk is neutralized, completely on its own.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. When your governance system can detect, alert, and even fix common security risks all by itself, what does that free up your best people to do? When you're no longer wasting time chasing down spreadsheets, you can start focusing on real innovation. And that's when things get truly interesting. Thanks for joining me.